Okay, but before today's going to be, to a great extent, it's going to be a review of some of the other things we've talked, and maybe some additional stuff. But what we've put together here is a checklist. I think if you kind of go down there and look and see what you've got at home, and maybe check it off as you go, you're going to be in much better shape. Kurt?
This morning, we saw on the television a doctor.
Must be true.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah. So we quit vitamins.
That's what you said. Terrible. What did he say it did to you?
Kill you, probably, right?
Yeah, doesn't do you any good.
Some serious side effects.
Serious side effects. Vitamin C.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D, serious side effects.
Yes.
You know, if we want to enjoy the kind of life we've all grown up with, you've got to get politically involved. You have to realize, and it's hard, you know, it's like this vaccination issue. Every argument that you hear starts with the premise that vaccines work. It's a false premise. And so you have to be real careful. You can say, you're much more likely to be listened to if you say, well, okay, you know, vaccines are probably important, but we should have a choice. It's like GMO. Well, you know, they probably do GMOs, but I want to know if GMO's in my food. Well, GMO is killing people. People in Europe are much smarter because they say, don't label it, ban it. And so you don't label vaccinations, ban them, because they're killing us anyway. If you invest $1 in a real good stock, you might get 11% exchange return. If you you might, I said, not necessarily you will get. If you, it just came out some financial. If you invested on some, I can't remember the other things. One was, but if you invest a dollar in pharmaceutical lobbying, if you've heard this, don't answer. But what do you think the return on your investment is? What these companies are earning? Just give a wild guess. Get something just real extreme. See if you
50%.
How much?
50.
50%. Wow, that's a lot of return. Any other guesses? Come on, you aren't going to get docked if you guess wrong. Your grade won't change. 77,000%.
Good.
See, that's so big we can't even comprehend it. 77,000% return. Do you think pharmaceutical companies lobby?
Yes.
Yeah, they do. And see, that's why they have obscene amounts of money. And so they can go give a medical school $500 million maybe. They can give a medical journal. They can put $100,000 worth of advertising in that journal every month. And guess what editorial influence that buys them? Huge. And the vaccine industry is another huge industry. It's probably a multi-billion-dollar industry. You think they might be lobbying?
Sure.
Senate Bill 442, I'm sorry, is the bill that would remove exemptions from vaccines. Now, right now, it's just on children. But the agenda from HHS, the Health and Human Services Agency of the government, the agenda is to vaccinate all of us, probably several times a year. And if they can get it so children have no exemptions, guess what the next step is? Well, even your children don't have exemptions. Why do you want an exemption? You know, a great deal of funding for for vaccination legislation comes from the Center for Disease Control, a government agency. So you've got to be vocal, because it's a huge industry we're competing against. So, the more you can do for yourself, the less you'll have to get involved with them. And worst case scenario, if at some time in the future we are forced to be vaccinated, your chances of surviving that vaccination will be greatly improved. This vaccination thing, you really, have any of you read Rainbow Six yet?
Rainbow Six.
Anyway, it's a great book that kind of is a little reverse of this scenario. In that book, they gave everybody the disease in a different way, and the good guys got vaccinated to prevent it. He assumed vaccination worked too, but anyway.
You know, what irks me about this whole situation with vaccines is that they seem to imply that only people who are stupid do not vaccinate. And yet every time I read about anybody in Eugene, for example, in South Eugene, where they...
Yeah, they're pretty well educated in
Yeah,
South
those are the
Eugene.
people from the U of O. When they tried to start a vaccine clinic at the U of O, only 8,000 people showed up out of 22 students.
Yeah, 20,000. Anyway, you're right. Clear back in 1993, the New England Journal of Medicine published a very interesting article about alternative medicine. And at that time, you know, 20 years ago, more, this study showed that people that seek medical care outside the traditional care that we've all grown up with have higher education and higher incomes. If you don't have a higher income, you usually can't afford it. But higher education, people are looking for answers. I got a call from a lady the other day. She said, "What should I do?" I said, "Every 3 months I've got to go to my doctor, and because I'm depressed, and he gives me these medications, and all he does is spend 10 minutes and change my prescription. $250. But that's not unusual. I mean, that's frequently the case.
That bill would make you depressed.
Yeah, that would definitely. Oh, geez, 3 months I got to go back to my doctor. Okay, so the more you can learn these things, you'll be able to take care of yourself much better. You can avoid getting into the system. You can avoid getting on the database. And I don't know what's coming down the road. We're very likely we're going to have some sort of a man-made plague. See? And so the healthier you are, everybody does, and no matter how bad the plague is, everybody doesn't die. That would be not a very effective plague. The plague needs continued business. So the better you take care of yourself, the less likely you're going to be affected. So all these things are hopefully designed to help you learn to protect yourself and your families. Okay, so this is very incomplete, this checklist, but if you have these things, you'll be a whole lot better off. And so it's kind of boring. This is sort of like reading the phone book, but let's just check a few of these things just to see if there's any real questions about them. Then maybe we'll develop some scenarios that might help you get through something like this. Okay, vitamin A, very, very important. I mean, you should be taking that on a regular basis. Let's say all of a sudden we're in an emergency situation and you've been taking vitamin A every day. What would you do, Kurt? You only got 100 vitamin A capsules, and all of a sudden there's no more vitamin A available.
I have to shake up the bottle.
You take it less often. So it's better to have a little bit for a long period of time than have a whole bunch and then none. So if you're on medication, or if your vitamin supply is now cut off, take less. But keep taking as much as you can.
There are some foods that are high in energy.
Yeah, sure there are. But those foods don't store real well. And sure, you can keep carrots, but in this day and age, because of genetic modification and all the additional stress on us, it's tough to store enough vitamin A food. One good source is kraut. Got some kraut going? Good. Get some more. You got 2 quarts, get 6. I just opened some kraut that's at least 4 years old. And it's the cabbage and the peppers and the cauliflower are a little bit mushy, but it still tastes really pretty good.
Was it sealed? The top, was it sealed?
It was probably airtight, but I did not seal it in the way you would with canning, where you do a vacuum seal. It was just hand tightened. And you can't do it right away with kraut. You have to wait till it's been around for a few weeks, because then it'll quit gassing off. But it just hand tightened. And I didn't even, the top layer of cabbage was a little discolored, so I threw it away. I probably didn't have to. But this several years.
Would you use the old kraut to start the new kraut?
I probably would use the old kraut, so yeah, I don't think it deteriorates with time. It probably does a little bit, but not significantly.
No, make a new kraut and then put some old kraut.
I
with
pour
it.
some of the juice from my old kraut into the new kraut. Yeah. Okay, so get kraut. Get some ace wraps. And have your Boy Scout handbook, so you can have some idea about wrapping, certain ways to wrap ankles and arms and things like that. And it wouldn't hurt to practice a little bit, but you probably won't. Anyway, activated charcoal. That's great for food poisoning and things like that. We've gotten away from the use of ipecac. Some people, in fact, I have some ipecac in my supplies, but most poison control say don't use ipecac, because then your vomit, you might aspirate and things like that. But activated charcoal will, or if you have some bentonite clay, that's another way to inactivate poisonous things or food poison, or if you think that might be what it is.
Do you mix it with water and drink it, or?
Yeah. You get pellets, charcoal pellets. You get room air fresheners that are activated charcoal. But it's available in most pharmacies. And what's the dose? I don't know. You have to kind of guess, but probably won't overdose on it. And even if you did, it's not absorbed, so it probably should go right there. Okay, arnica pellets. Now, if you aren't familiar at all with homeopathy, well, then arnica pellets aren't going to do you a lot of good, but they're great for pain, emergency painful situations. Whether you use the lotion or the pellets, but I'd say get baking soda before you got arnica. So we've talked about that. We talked about it last week, but do it.
Can I give my dog soda?
Sure you can. Put a little vinegar in your dog's water, and they like it. I've got some. This would be good for us too. Brewer's yeast powder. Put that on your animal food. They love it. Put it on your popcorn. It gives it a nice flavor. That's a great source of nutrition.
It doesn't mold. Can you keep it a long time? It doesn't mold.
I don't know how long that is, but I don't think it molds. I don't know. Keep it dry and sealed. I don't know. Now here's a great one. I've seen it demonstrated on YouTube. I've never tried it myself, but I've never had a bad bite of any sort. You have a 9-volt battery. Put wires from the terminals on the opposite side of a venomous bite. And reports are, what are your choices if you get you think it's a recluse spider or a black widow or a scorpion or some other creepy crawly thing?
Swallow a whole bottle of vitamin C.
Well, that's a source, but then you get diarrhea. No, I heard in the radio this morning, it'll poison you. So you better throw that away.
Well, I shouldn't even be here.
So you don't have any, what do? You can put baking soda on a bite like that. If you got your Boy Scout manual, you might cut it and try to get it to bleed. But if you have a 9-volt battery, try it.
Would it give you a shock when you did that?
You don't feel 9 volts usually.
See, there's the electrician. No, isn't it the amperage that you feel?
Yeah.
Well, like if it was a spark plug or something, you'd feel that.
Well, yeah, that's only 12 volts. So what's the difference between a 9-volt battery and a 12-volt battery?
I guess it's the amperage, all right.
Yeah, I think it's the amperage. So I don't think you'd feel it. You change batteries and you don't really feel it. But since it may be something that would give you a definite, but just keep it in mind. And have a couple 9-volt batteries and have some wire.
Electric fence.
What's that? What's the voltage?
Electric fence.
So you go out and put your arm on it.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
that
hot.
gives you a shock, I can tell you that.
There's a lot of
Gets
amperage.
you over there.
Okay. Have a bee sting kit. Now, you have to get a doctor's permission to get a bee sting kit. It's a prescription item. I don't know. But what could you use if someone's having an allergic reaction? Excuse me. If you didn't have a bee sting kit, what could you do? Urine shot. I think a urine shot, and I've experimented with this a few times in my family. People having a allergic reaction to a lotion, or someone thought they had an allergic reaction to something they ate. Their mouth starts tingling and swelling a little bit, and it gets scratchy, and their hands the palms turn red, and the hands get a little puffy. A shot of urine, maybe just a very, very tiny amount. Within 15 minutes, everything was reversing.
Now you don't have to sterilize that or anything. Just regular
You're
urine,
dying,
and you
maybe.
put it in a
Yeah,
in a
you
needle.
just draw it up, and I should bring a syringe. You just get a little allergy syringe or a diabetic syringe or anything, and you get a urine sample, and you just barely put it any. If you can see a little bit in that syringe, that's enough, and then you put it into the muscle. If you had to, you'd go right through the clothing. I remember once my brother and I were fishing it, and we had a cabin in Mount Hood, but we stood in a bee's nest. In the mountains, the bees are in the ground, and we were standing there fishing, and all of a sudden he started dancing and screaming, and the bees were kind of swarming up, and we ran away, of course, but then there was a bee crawling up his leg, and he could feel it, and he was slapped, and our aunts and uncles would say, well, take off your pants. No, he wouldn't take off his pants. He was too embarrassed to take off his pants. Anyway, so he got stung again. But in an emergency, you go right through the skin, right through the clothing. You can give it in the arm, but anyway, it'll usually fix an emergency. Now, if you have an option of going to the emergency room, go to the emergency room. But a lot of times you don't have that option. And if you're a half hour away from the emergency room, it might be too late anyway. So if you can't get an EpiPen, get some syringes. Get some little 1 cc syringes and learn to use them. It isn't hard to get an orange and just start. Anyway, it's great for emergency allergic reactions. The bentonite clay is for toxins. We talked about that. Borax powder. Get a box of borax, 20 mule team borax. You can sprinkle along the place where the sugar ants are coming in. You can use very small amounts to help alkalinize you if you have some sort of a chronic condition. You can also use it to wash dishes in, if that's what it's designed for.
Is that the same as the boron that you buy in the health food store?
It's related, but it is boron. Okay. Little bottles. It'd be great if you had a few little bottles you can make homeopathic remedies in. Boy Scout manual, we talked about that. Calendula ointment. That's a wonderful thing to have. Calendula is great for these little splinters or big splinters. They're too deep, and you can't really dig them out. Have you ever had a splinter under your fingernail, and you try and pull it out and you can't get it out? What do? You suffer.
Yeah.
But if you take a little calendula ointment and smear it under the nail, for some reason it draws the splinter out. Or if you get step on a piece of glass and you can't find it, that's a miserable thing to try and dig out. Put calendula on it. It's a wonderful remedy. It's very safe, and all sorts of good uses for it. Cayenne Tincture. That's another thing. It'll stop a heart attack. It probably stops strokes. It's not written up in the medical journals. It's pretty much anecdotal, but it's been around for so long, there's probably a lot of truth to it. If someone's having a heart attack, what are you going to do? What are your choices? You call 911, you'll say, your expected wait time is 45 minutes. It may be, because you got 50 other people. So, if you have these things around, give some, you can try these things, but you gotta have these things around, so you ought to put this someplace in a notebook.
So do you put it in a little bit of water, or do you
Sure
just
you
put
can.
a drop?
If you don't have water, and put it in straight, the shock
And it
may.
would just take a drop or two, right? It wouldn't take
I
much.
think that's probably all it doesn't take very much. Yeah, put it under the tongue. It'll burn a while, but no one's died from a cayenne burn. They might wish they had, but anyway, have it around. Get some cinnamon. Wonderful remedy. You got a 6-year-old kid that got diarrhea. He has 8 bowel movements a day, watery diarrhea. What are you going to do for it? What do you have at home right now that'll fix this child?
Charcoal or cinnamon?
Charcoal or cinnamon.
Yeah.
You're reading ahead.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Yeah, it's cinnamon. And everybody's probably got cinnamon, but get another bottle. You know, it's what, $5, $6 at Costco? Get it and start organizing these things at home. If it's like my house, if you have a crisis and, oh yeah, I saw it someplace, you know.
Yeah.
I know it's around here someplace. Okay, cell salts. Now that takes a little preparation and foreknowledge, and it can be a whole lot better if you have the little cell salt book, the Biochemic Handbook. And we are probably the exclusive distributor of the Biochemic Handbook in the Lane County. Not out of choice, but people just don't use it. And it's hard to find it sometimes. It's a wonderful book. It'll save you thousands of dollars and probably lives. But you have to be familiar with it.
Do you know if whatever they recommend in there, the cell salts, if they're forever good? Because I've got some that must be 20 years old.
How did you find that out?
How did I find out what?
If it's any good. I might give you a hint.
All right.
They probably are.
Touche.
You know, as long as they aren't sitting on top of your TV set or you've microwaved them a few times,
Okay.
they're probably good.
I don't have a microwave.
Yeah, okay. Now, once you get kind of into this, what you probably could do is hold the bottle and just think in your mind Fairphos or Natphos. And just with intention, you could probably repotentize it. I know, it sounds crazy, but everybody thinks that's crazy, but remember the story of the robot and the baby chicks? Remember that story? Chicks like to have a mother, so they'll follow a dog or a goose or a giraffe around once they hatch. They took some chickens, they hatched them in a cage, and outside the cage was a robot programmed by a computer chip. And the robot was programmed to go randomly around the room. Within a short period of time, I remember the robot only stayed around the cage. It didn't go anywhere else. And this experiment was repeated several times. The chickens think we have as much intention as a chicken. Chickens are pretty dumb. Yeah, and so you can take this and potentize it. So, to answer your question, I think it's probably still good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think it is, it probably is.
Yeah. I don't want to throw it away.
No, don't throw it away. Cider vinegar. Now, you can buy cider vinegar at Safeway for $3 a gallon, $4 a gallon. You want the unpasteurized cider vinegar. You want the one that you pour it out, looks like this little scum in it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if anybody can learn how to make cider vinegar and keep it from going hard, I'd really like to know.
What's wrong with the
People do it. People do it. You can buy it commercially. We sell some here, unpasteurized, et cetera, and it's in a sealed bottle. And I don't. Anyway.
I know
Okay.
how to make raspberry vinegar.
Wow.
Just
But then you cook it. Then you
no,
cook.
my freezer came unplugged.
Oh, your freezer.
And I had frozen,
Oh, then, yeah.
I had raspberries in there.
No.
And when I took them
That's
out,
called hard raspberry stuff.
anyway, it smelled like vinegar.
If you have any opportunity, get some chickens. They're easy to take care of. You can do them in a small space, and they're great nutrition. Your own fresh eggs, that's great. Clorox, remember how many drops, do you remember before you read here? How many drops of Clorox it takes to purify 1 quart of water? Okay, someone do the math quick. You have a gallon of Clorox. How many gallons of water can you purify?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot. Several thousand gallons with 1 gallon of Clorox. So have a gallon of Clorox. Write with a felt tip pen the date on it, because it does get weaker as it gets older. Get a couple so when you're doing wash or something, you can rotate them. Several thousand gallons of water. That's huge. So have it available. What's the first thing that goes we run out of in an emergency? Water. And then you can set up a little stand. Water, cheap. $5 a gallon. They'd shoot you pretty quickly, wouldn't they? Okay, coconut oil. I hope you're all eating coconut oil several times a day. It's super stuff. Kurt, I see you're not. Your hair's not brown yet.
I'm working on it.
Colloidal silver, another good thing. And actually, you can buy colloidal silver generators. The little battery-operated things. You get 2 sterling silver wires, and you hook it up and put it in a glass of water, and you get your own colloidal silver. But you have to have a battery, and you have to be ahead of time because you can't get them at Weimar.
So can you use it externally too for cuts and things?
Sure
Is it
you can.
helpful? I mean,
Sure. It's almost totally innocuous. I saw one guy had this condition called ageria, where you get too much silver and your skin actually turns kind of bluish gray.
Yeah.
But he is drinking huge amounts. But it's almost impossible to overdose on colloidal silver.
It's good for burns too.
It's good for just a whole lot of things.
So like for a rash or something, it might be.
Try it. Essentially non-toxic, and it does kill. It's one of these. It's one of these things that selectively kills pathogens. So there's a few things like that, like coconut oil and probably grapefruit seed extract, and just recently they're again saying quit using antibacterial soaps. I mean, you get enough antibacterial stuff if you eat chicken from Safeway, because they're the greatest consumer of antibiotics these days are the meat and dairy people, and we're getting those indirectly. Colloidal silver, but here again, if colloidal silver is appealing to you, then start now. Learn about it, read about it, learn how to use it, how much, how to make it, or get yourself a supply of it. Okay, if you know anybody, one of the greatest gifts you can give someone that they won't appreciate right now, especially if they have babies, is cloth diapers. If you give a family with young children and they can't get Pampers, the world's going to come to an end. I mean, it's staggering the number of Pampers that get into landfills. It's kind of frightening too. But cloth diapers, the current generation have never seen a cloth diaper. And remember how you used to clean your cloth diapers after the child has a bowel movement? They don't even want to think about that. But it would be can you imagine raising a child without diapers? It'd be awful. You can buy, if you can find them, Fred Meyer I think has cloth diapers, get them a pack of 24 cloth diapers. They'll love you in the future. They'll question your sanity right now, but okay.
They make really good dust cloths too.
Sure, there's so many other things you can use them for. And the other thing, I don't know if I put it down here, some sort of menstrual pad. If there are people in your home that are menstruating, that's next to diapers. That'd probably be the next thing on the priority list. See, 100 years ago, our grandparents had other ways of taking care of that. I don't know what they did, but it wasn't as easy as it is now. But you've got to have something available, so they'll go in a hurry. Okay, DMSO, another wonderful thing to have. It does. I don't think it wears out either. If you got a bottle of DMSO, I think it's just like I demonstrated last week. The peroxide that's at least 5 years old. It bleached my thumb real well, yeah, but it's healed. It's all better.
So with DMSO, do you have to be really careful because it carries stuff in? I mean, to have it clean before you
Well,
put
relatively
it on?
clean. Yeah.
I mean, I've always been kind of afraid to use that because I thought.
Well, okay. Let's say you got some feces on your skin. Don't put DMSO. Most other things. Let's say before you cut yourself accidentally, you don't clean your skin. And most of the time you cut yourself, at least superficially, it heals, even though your skin wasn't clean before you cut yourself. So ideally, sure, if you're going to rub DMSO all over your back, well, I'd wash it off before you use the DMSO. But don't be that fastidious.
Doesn't the DMSO carry stuff further
Well, sure it does.
into you than
So it's carrying stuff.
If you just cut yourself, even if you were dirty, the stuff wouldn't go in as deep probably as if you added DMSO, because wouldn't it take it further?
Oh, you're nitpicking. Don't make sure the body part is clean. Don't worry about sterilizing or anything like that.
And it doesn't matter if it's on your head. It doesn't matter about your hair or anything like that.
No,
I mean,
I would not worry about
it's
that.
not a big deal. Okay.
We've grown up with this idea of the germ theory. If you get a bug, you're going to get the disease. But now for many years, they've been trying to tell us this. They've been trying to tell us infection does not mean disease. See, we've got meningitis bugs in our mouth and in our blood. We've got strep, we've got yeast, and in our intestines, we've got every imaginable kind of bug. And remember the past the cholera story, where they actually drank cultures of cholera and did not get sick. It's the environment that determines whether or not you're going to get sick. So if I put some DMSO and I've got some sweat or maybe a little mud from the garden, you're going to be okay.
And what does the DMSO do? Is it an antibiotic kind of thing?
No,
Is it
it's
what-
anti-inflammatory. So you've got a bad bruise or stiff joints or you've injured yourself somehow, it helps reduce the inflammation in that area. It does a whole lot. It'll help chelate you too. When we give it intravenously, it helps pull the stuff out of the plaques. When someone's had a brain injury, if you give it intravenously, it helps prevent the brain from swelling, which is what causes the damage. So it does a lot of things. People drink it, inject it intravenously, use it in enemas, topically. Some of you can even put it, but you have to dilute it because it's going to be uncomfortable. You have to be familiar with how to use it if you think DMSO is something you want to keep. And there's lots of books written. Okay, Enema Kit and Fleet's Enema, this is mainly for kids, but if you have an adult that's got bad constipation, it's a great thing. It's wonderful though for young children. You're trying to give them the magnesium chloride or the grapefruit seed extract to have a bulb syringe or a pediatric enema kit. If in your family constipation is kind of a chronic ongoing problem, then I would not only have a Fleet enema kit, I would get 3 or 4 Fleet's enemas, they call them. You go to any grocery store, they have little packages. All they are is a little container with some fluid in it, with a nozzle, and it's a quick way to give an enema. much. Do any of you have an Enema Kit at home? It's hard to find them. Really, they're just a hot water bottle with the tube, with the hose and with the little nozzle. And you hang it up and let gravity empty it. Okay. Raw eyeglass, another critical thing, like tweezers. If you get something in your eye, how do you get it out? Ooh, a little eyeglass is a wonderful thing. And in lieu of an eyeglass, you could take your little bulb syringe and fill it with water and rinse your eye out under a little pressure. But something in your eye can be very debilitating. And you can even lose your vision if it take. Another great thing, we should probably have a class on this type of emergency. What do you do if you got your eye just hurts and you had something in it and it still hurts? One of the best things you do, you put a cotton ball over that eyeball and put some tape, hold the cotton against the eyeball, so you can put a drop of calendula tincture, you could put a little colloidal silver in there, and then cover the eye with a cotton ball. Everybody will be much happier. Hydrogen peroxide, raw honey, another great thing for superficial infections. And it's good to eat. Hydrogen peroxide, well, we talk about that a lot. We'll talk about a little bit more about inhalation and things like that. But you have a 3-year-old with an earache, what do? Well, you got your cell salt book, and that might work. You put hydrogen peroxide in the air. Or if you have vertigo.
I did it again this week. I was working under my camp trailer, working upside down. Got very nauseated. Then I do the ear thing and I get over it.
I don't know if you heard that. I want to make sure people. Vertigo, when you get dizzy and you get nauseous, and that's not a word apparently, but you get nauseated. We have anecdotal evidence here that if you put a little 3% hydrogen peroxide in your ear, it will get rid of that vertigo. And how long did you have to wait after you put it in?
Hardly any time.
That's it. Now, what's going on? It probably has to do with getting oxygen into that tissue, because that's what peroxide will do for you. So, another use for your hydrogen peroxide. Earaches,
It's great.
flu, and vertigo.
It's like a miracle.
Okay. It is a miracle.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the side effects from peroxide are really only when you use the 35%. If you're taking 8 or 10 or 12 or 20 drops of 35% hydrogen peroxide on an empty stomach, you might experience some nausea. But it isn't life-threatening. It's just take less, and you'll do just fine.
My sister was on a trip to Europe a few years back, and you can buy milk off the counter over there. It isn't refrigerated. And it turns out what they do is they put in a few drops of hydrogen peroxide in the milk, and it doesn't go sour. So, anyway, I just thought that was kind of
There's something about milk out of the kitchen cabinet that is very appealing.
Well, that's what she thought too.
Well, anyway, that's what they do. Iodine, if you have, now if you found you've got a condition that iodine makes you better, then you better have some on board. Iodine's a wonderful thing for what's a quick remedy for a hemorrhoid? If you have a painful hemorrhoid, you mix a little oil with equal amounts of Lugol solution and put it right on the hemorrhoid. Usually within a day, the hemorrhoid is pretty well controlled. You might want to have a few preparation H suppositories, but anyway, that's a real easy way. But you got to think about it. I guess one of these days we'll put together a book. This will be under H. So you got to know how to spell at least.
So how
Okay.
much iodine do you need for water purification?
That's right. A lot of iodine purification tablets are basically iodine.
But like if you had Lugol solution, could you put some of that in water to purify?
What is
it?
Lugol solution?
Well, it's iodine, but I mean, so would you put? I'm
Sure.
wondering how many drops would you put in a gallon or whatever?
I can't remember, Google it sometime. I think it's just 2 or 3 drops a quart. And the other way to purify water, remember that?
Out in the sun, in a clear
Clorox.
plastic container.
Clear plastic. Leave it in the sun for 24 hours. It'll get rid of all the bugs. It won't get rid of pollution. It won't get rid of the dirt, but it'll sterilize it. What does it do? How does it do that? Ultraviolet irradiation.
You can't use glass.
Glass you probably could, but I don't recommend storing water in glass. I mean, it's probably better for us, but practically speaking, in an emergency, broken glass scares me.
Oh, you're talking about somebody who's not careful, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I've got too many kids.
I know about that.
You know, glass is probably, it would be better for us. Ivory soap, great stuff. It's not antibacterial. And there's this old remedy for constipation in young people. You put a little sliver of ivory soap up an infant's rear end, and almost always you get relief of constipation. But in reality, I don't think it's the ivory soap. I think if you just took your little finger and inserted it a ½ inch into the child's rectum, that would probably do the same thing. You're stimulating a reflex in that area, and that will help. But you know, a little sliver of ivory soap won't hurt anybody. Magnesium chloride, another great thing. You can use it for all sorts of remedies, for especially infectious ones. High blood pressure, for anything, a whole lot of things. And I think, yeah, on the back page we've talked about how you make a solution. You can put magnesium chloride on things, you can drink it, you can inhale it, just about every imaginable way to use magnesium chloride. If you have high blood pressure, you can take it in larger doses to help control that.
Where do you get those small bottles?
Hmm?
Where do you get those small bottles?
Well, when we used to buy from this particular company, they'd send us a bunch.
Oh.
I don't know if you can buy them. You know, what I just did find out, you can go online and Google spray bottles. And you find company, now you have to buy 50 dozen or something like that. I buy quite a lot. But you can get them that way. But you don't, you can put them in a big spray bottle. You'll get one of these little multi-cup or so, or buy one of these things, and you really can refill them.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. Okay, you might notice when you try and buy matches, a lot of matches that are available today are, you have to strike them on the box. I don't think those are good ones to have. I don't like those at all. Because the only place you have to have the box, and my box usually wears out before my matches run out. So just pay attention when you buy them. Or a cigarette lighter. Cheap cigarette lighter you can usually buy them at the dollar store for $3 for $1. So it's a great, and it usually works. And they're pretty raw. You know, you get a bad one once in a while, but for 33 cents, you probably equivalent to several boxes of matches.
Store them right side up.
When you light it.
No, when you're between uses.
Hold them right side up between uses.
Store them right side up.
Why?
Because they'll leak out.
Oh, they leak out. Okay. If you're on medications, try and keep at least a 3-month supply. You know, a lot of insurance companies. Here again, we're getting the insurance companies are dictating how we practice medicine. A lot of insurance companies, you have a copay, and they only give you 30 days worth of medication, so you have to do a copay again. You may just have to bite the bullet and pay for the whole thing yourself. Some of them are pretty spendy, though. I know that. But here again, in an emergency, I would encourage people to consider taking half the dose or a third of the dose of their medication. There's nothing scientific in the way medications are prescribed. Almost always, the prescription is dictated by the drug company with the idea in mind of achieving a certain blood level of that medication. But no one has ever tested you to determine what your blood level needs to be for that medicine to be effective. I wouldn't worry too much about the expiration date either. The expiration date usually means you have a certain percentage of the potency there. And once it gets below a certain percentage, it's somewhat arbitrary, that drug is expired. Doesn't mean it's no good, because no one knows for sure what potency of the medication you need to have the medication be effective.
Are there medications that actually are harmful if they're too old? Or
Probably,
do they just not work?
but I don't know them. All I'm saying is that if you really need a medication and it's old, I would definitely try it. You can always douse it. Trouble with dowsing
See?
medications, they frequently are always going to douse bad. So it might be a little misleading that if it douses bad, you still might need it.
See, you don't have pendulum on the list.
You know, you're right.
You should have pendulum on this list.
Well, you know, I'm learning, if you just learn to hold it here, you don't even need a pendulum. You can really be self-sufficient.
As long as you're facing the right direction.
I don't even think that matters. You know, the theory. I think a lot of times when someone puts forth a theory, the more little things they require you to do for the theory to work, the more they're in control of what you're. See, so you have to face north, and you have to hold it right here on your sternum with your right hand before noon. Then it works. No, I think these things work. Just about, you can face just about anyway. If it doesn't work, try facing north. You know, it's not as going to cost you anymore.
What symptom do you see when you do that? I mean, how do you know?
If something's good for you, your body will tend to move forward.
Okay.
If it's not good for you, and some people, like everything else, some people are very sensitive. I see some people will do that, and they'll almost fall. They have to take a step to keep their balance. And I think it takes some practice so you can kind of tune in to what your body's doing. But it sometimes can be very dramatic. And learning to use a pendulum takes a little effort. But it's a little quicker.
The effort is in finding it when you want it.
You can make it out of anything. Take off your glasses and hold them on a string. Yeah, you're right though. Whereas but don't get too attached to your pendulum. It's not magic. Okay. Molasses, another great thing to use for a variety of reasons. Nail clippers. Oh, how much would love to have nail clippers and scissors. Yes.
Don't skip over the one about cancer remedy for molasses. I've never heard of that. What is that?
Well, where have you been?
Well, I've been here and other places.
There's an old remedy that says cancer thrives on sugar,
Yeah.
glucose.
Molasses is partly sugar.
Well,
Yeah, it is.
it is. Well, when someone found that if you mix, I think it's a 1-to-3 ratio of molasses to baking soda, and there's a YouTube video on it where a guy mixes it up warms it up and dissolves it all together. He had a stage 4 prostate cancer, bony metastases. And within 2 or 3 weeks, the bony metastases were gone. And he was so impressed with it. He happened to be a brother of someone I used to see as a patient. And anyway, I've contacted him a couple times in the last year or so, 2 or 3, I don't know. And he's still doing well. Yeah.
I've cured skin cancers on my own self using dissolved vitamin C.
Well, see, there's lots of those things out there, and you got to find one. See, I'm working on a little deal on my face here. I'm using a combination of urea and Dmso and B17 and hemp oil.
Vitamin C worked great.
Okay, well, if it gets bigger, it's getting smaller. So we'll see.
What
So
about
it-
the magnesium oil?
What about it?
You have to put that on there.
Well, the liquor's already full. I can't hold it. No, I haven't tried it yet. This seems to be working.
So do you put the molasses and baking soda like on and then put a Band-Aid over it or something?
Oh, no, people take it by mouth.
You're not putting it on like on the skin cancer? You're not putting
It might work, but in this particular way they use they made a solution and took it by
And they
mouth.
eat it, like it's
And
candy.
ate it. phkillscancer.org. And I'll tell you how this guy did it. But back to the nail clippers. Since we aren't used to grinding our nails off with stones and tearing with our fingers. So if you tear your fingernail and you get a big infected hangnail, that's where you need your calendula. So if you aren't going to get nail clippers, get calendula. Okay, newspapers, great. Newspapers are kind of becoming extinct, but nobody uses it anymore. Pretty soon everything will be electronic. But anyway, Omni drops for allergic pH. I don't know how critical pH, unless you decided you want to treat yourself with for something like cancer. It's important to get your pH around 8 if you're gonna. But learn about it, read about it, and find out for yourself. Safety pin's another wonderful thing to have in an emergency. Get some kraut going. If you have a garden, grow a few heads of cabbage so you have nice organic kraut. Okay, a bunch of other things. Now splints and things like that. Pretty soon you're getting into a whole lot of things. You probably, but if you sprain your wrist, or you can buy a few simple little splints. I'm not thinking of splinting the femur or the humerus, some of these big bones. But if you these little wrist splints are pretty easy to get. They never wear out. It'd be great to have them around in a pinch. Super glue for lacerations. Wonderful stuff. Then you can put some super glue in it and tape it together and put some duct tape on it. Anyway, tea, grow some peppermint tea, turmeric, another wonderful remedy, tweezers, urine. And these things, like the last few things on the list, the homeopathic, making your own homeopathic remedies, urine therapy, the magnesium chloride, the baking soda, and the peroxide, were all things you will have to probably get a little skill in before you have to have a bottle or two of something like this. These just little nasal mist bottle, not a spray bottle. Get a nasal mist bottle, have them around. For $3 or $4 you can get, I think, 2 of them. And they're just great for inhalation therapy with magnesium chloride, baking soda peroxide. Just a wonderful thing to have for bronchitis, for probably treat pneumonia. And if you don't have any other choices, you might save lives. Because hospitals won't be available but if you treat a cough early, it won't become pneumonia. If you wait and you don't use your cell salts or your colloidal silver or magnesium chloride, it's going to get worse. So you treat these things earlier, and especially in extreme circumstances. Okay, well, I think we've covered just everything we need to cover. You just have to go home and start your list, go down here, start checking these things off, and if you think about next time you get a little cold or sore throat or earache or cramp, or look at the cell salt book. Try fiddling around these things. You get some confidence in them. Because they do work. And you probably won't have a lot of choices. So, get smart. Questions?
Somebody's got, I mentioned this before, got a sore on their leg.
Oh, what?
A sore.
Uh-huh.
Been there for a couple of years. Can't get it to clear up.
Okay.
I'm gonna be the doctor.
What are you going to do, doctor?
I don't know.
Don't go to him.
Don't cut the leg off.
But, that's going to be a long time.
Well, yeah, it is. Obviously, there's some vascular problem down there where he's not getting enough blood. Things don't heal. If you don't get blood to a tissue, it won't heal. And that's why diabetics have problems, because their blood circulation to their legs is called blood flow.
They have got it healed up, but then it comes back.
Why does it come back?
No circulation.
he hasn't gotten to the cause of it. See, that's so typical of how people get treated these days. Oh, I've got this headache. Okay, here's something to take care of the headache. Or I've got diarrhea. Okay, let's fix the diarrhea. We treat symptoms because that's what. See, we're going back to the pharmaceutical influence on medicine. We try to make you feel better quick, and then we're good doctors because you're better. But just like you say, well, now it comes back, keeps coming back. Well, why does it come back? See, you got to start saying, well, why does he get ulcers and I don't? So, anyway, you got to look at the cause. Any other questions?
So there's something that you can make with beets called kvass or something like that. Does that give you the same benefits as kraut? You know, it is
Pretty
this
much, I
ferment,
think.
And it's so easy because it only takes 2 days.
Well, yeah, but it probably gets better if you let it go a little longer.
And I mean, but
What do you mean it's done in 2 days? What does that
Well,
mean? You
It's
start
done.
eating
It's
it?
done enough you can drink it. I mean, you don't eat the
Oh.
beet, you drink it. I mean, it's fermented enough that you know it's got a bite to it.
Well,
and
you
all
can
that.
eat kraut after 2 days. I mean, there's nothing sacred about waiting a month or 2 years.
Well, I thought it took a certain amount of time for it to.
Well, if
ferment.
the longer it goes, the more potent it goes, it gets. And I don't know if it reaches a point where it's flat lines, it doesn't get any stronger. But I think kvass is another fermented food. Fermented foods are just superfoods. They're just very good for us. So if you like kvass, the thing I don't like about beets is everything turns red. I mean, it's,
Use golden beets.
pardon?
Use golden beets.
Use golden beets, that's right.
But and with the kvass, you don't necessarily eat the beets on anything later. You just drink the stuff. And I notice if you don't drink it right away, it keeps getting darker and darker. But I'm sure it's probably just getting better.
Yeah, I don't know much about kvass at all. But it's fermented, and that means it's going to be very nutritious for you. Yeah.